Okay, so I'd like to start by saying a beautiful design solution should express the past, the present, and the future. It needs to convey a sense of timelessness. And I like using that timelessness because that's what you sort of strive for in your work. Michael was always key of pointing out the Alvarado vase as a sense of timelessness in that design. And we got ours with our IDSA tea kettle, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So my name is Donald Strum, and I'm the principal of, not of the school, but of Michael Graves Architecture and Design, the product division. And my journey today with you is I'd like to focus on those influences, the processes, the details, the creative thinking associated with the ability to really capture beauty within an enduring product design. So that's what I'd like to touch about. I also want to touch about my experience with mentorship, right? So I think that's really applicable in going to school and having professors, and that I'll talk about in terms of my relationship with Michael. Really also the importance of design excellence in everything you do, the way you think about it. Every project needs to move you forward in your creative thinking and what you want to say, what you want to stand for. Also, start now capturing a design philosophy. You know, you sort of sometimes, as all these years I've been doing it, it's sort of innate, it's in you, but at some point you got to spell it out. What do you stand for? So I talk about that with guiding principles. And I also want to show you some new work that I hope you find beautiful and compelling, and that's sort of moving us forward into this world beyond Michael. And that's another reason why we're calling it Resonating Beauty. There's a particular topic in healthcare that I want to talk about that is really antithetical to that, of what's happening right now in healthcare. And we think by incorporating this idea of emotion and lifestyle that we can get something here. So again, I want to make sure you've come to the right place. Hopefully you recognize a couple things here. Right to the left is the Dolphin Hotel, which is down in Disney World. And I show these just because hopefully you've seen something that connects you to us, that we've been involved or you have some association to what we've been doing. Besides this, here you are at the Michael Graves College. And then you, of course, can recognize the gentleman in the middle. And then, of course, in terms of products, the IDSA Whistling Bird Tea Kettle. So hopefully that looks familiar to you, and you're in the right place tonight. Just a little bit about me and why I stand before you tonight, and hopefully you'll hear some things that resonate with you about what I'm about to say. But I do want to tell you, but when I turned 50, it was a sort of seminal period for me in my life, and I decided to dedicate myself to the color blue. So I wore blue at all scales, all in my clothing for 365 days, just because I had loved ones and friends that I lost along the way, and I thought, to make it half a century, I think that's pretty good. And to be able to do the things I've been doing and having the family around me, and I just thought blue, not because I was blue, just because I look so good in blue. And I thought that, if I'm going to wear blue for a year, it might as well be a good color for me. So, and then I realized as I'm wearing blue and I'm experiencing blue, I realized I started getting more of that parochial school mentality. Like, how great is it just to pick out something blue every day and you don't have to worry about it? Right? I know that, in the more urban vibe is you wear black every day, but that doesn't suit me. I needed blue. So it just made life so much easier. And then finally, when my 51st birthday came along, I sort of lamented, and what am I going to do to get back to another color? Because I don't really know what that feels like. So I decided to spend a month detoxing, wearing nothing but white. So I detoxed with sort of the purity of white to sort of get me back into a wider color range. So that's a little bit about just something I did. But I had a mentor. I actually had two mentors. It really, for me, it started, if you don't mind me just sharing this story, it started in high school. I had this amazing art teacher. He took me and just made me appreciate art at an early age, and I discovered in myself that it had meaning for me. And then when looking at what careers I could do, I realized I would not be a good fine artist, but I remember going down and speaking to my guidance counselor and saying, looking at all was available, and came upon industrial design about this level of enhancement in everyday life. And I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So I knew from my junior year, this is it. This is what I was going to do. And then I went to Parsons, just over yonder, across the river there, and I got caught up in this this world where we had a different chairperson for every year for 3 years. I didn't get the best education. I got a great foundation year there, but something was missing for me. And when I learned about this opportunity to sweep floors at Michael Graves' office and run blueprints, I took it because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go into the real world figuring I had some design voice. I had something to say. And it took me good 4 years. And Michael, at that point, he was just giving me assignments. He was friendly enough talking to me, but we weren't talking about design. I wasn't worthy to really hear what he had to say about design. I couldn't come to the table to have that conversation. And that was sort of my moment, my master's of after 4 years where I could finally then engage in a dialogue with him about art, about architecture, about all the design history. And that's something he emphasized, this level of design history. You got to know it, because you got to know what came before you in order to move forward to then break the rules. You have to know what rules you're breaking. And that was really important for me in my education, because you come across something and you got to know when you're breaking the rules and how to break the rules. So in that office at that time, we're talking now, I actually started in 1983, there was something going on there. There was a movement about. And I wanted to be a part of that. I craved it. And it was so much larger than who I was. But I just thought I have to just involve myself every day. So I actually reduced the amount of schooling I was doing. I went to Parsons 2 days a week, and then I was working at the Graves office 3 days a week and weekends, because they would have charrettes. And I'm like, I got to get in on these charrettes. So everyone knows, everyone done a charrette, right? The best things come when you're in the throes of a charrette. So in those moments, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's just like you would have these insights. And so that was just really meaningful in those early days. The other thing is we were drawing. We were drawing all the time. Draw, draw, draw. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I know you're getting it here, but just always keep a sketchbook close by. One of the things we always do, even anyone I interview, I always make sure they bring their sketchbook. And I want to look at that sketchbook. I want to see dates, right? I want to see their last entry. I want to see what they're thinking about. I want that visual diary of who you are, because that's it as a designer. You have to be in it. You have to be passionate about it. You've got to be doing it every day. Don't be wishy-washy about it. Commit to it. And then the other thing with Michael was, and David, you can talk to this, is this idea of, or you know this very well, it's just about proportion, composition. The golden section, that ratio, that 1 to 1.618, that you find in Stonehenge, right? There's a reason why it's there. There's a reason why people gravitate to that proportion, because it works. It's something in us that we just long for. So if you can, I'm just giving you a cheat sheet. If you can try to find a way golden proportion in your work, you're halfway there. I'm just going to give you that tonight. But then there's all the other things that just moves away from simplification in terms of composition, scale, hierarchy, relationships, semiology, metaphor, symbolism, allegory. All these things that I learned in that office. And again, and when we talked about modernism, it was more of a composition of modernism, because Michael did start his years off being a modernist. And he rejected, and he was making some traction in his practice. And he rejected his own work, his own beliefs, when he was doing early modernist works in the 60s. And he told me this. He said, Donald, when I was doing that work, it made me feel empty, because a lot of it was so esoteric that nobody was allowed in. It was at such a level that no one understood it. And he realized that wasn't working beyond his clients. For the most part, he had to explain it to his clients, versus it being so intuitive that you're there from the get-go, right? The minute you show it, they understand it. And maybe it takes some explanation, but they're there. And that's something, is you don't want to confuse them. You want to bring them in. That's really important, and that's sort of understanding your audience. So it's really about expressing a narrative, achieving, for us, formal beauty in everything you do, simple utility, and functional innovation. Right? That's part of our formula here. And again, there was this quote that Michael shared with me about there was this particular poet that he loved named Wallace Stevens, and it says you have to be literal enough to get the reader into the text, right? So something they're familiar with, and then abstract enough to keep them there, because that's the sort of jazz of it all. That's the sort of interest. So it's the balance of the abstract and the literal. And that's what Michael taught me time and time again. That's why I stayed there, because I needed to learn those lessons. I needed to repeat those lessons. One time wasn't going to do it. It needed to be a part of me. It needed to just firmly be rooted in my feet and work its way up all the way through my body. And from that, I became what I call a high-level functionary at the office because I was executing the vision. Michael was so charismatic. He's out there getting the work, but someone had to, getting the new clients, someone had to do the work. And after my sort of apprenticeship with him, I was able to just really take on product design and do it at a very high level for him. And then carrying that vision, understanding that vision, what needed to happen. So that's why I say, once you understand the rules, then you can break them. Whoop, I skipped one. So do we have any architecture students here? All right. Yep. So you know we do that, right? We do that. And we do it with this idea of the ability of architecture to tell a story. You're always about storytelling, creating a narrative, with what we call the person occupying the space or using the product, and they are your central character of the story. And as a result, people experience our work spatially, visually, and emotionally. How are we doing with interior designers? Do we have any interior designers? People who appreciate interiors? All right. It's all part of that continuum. We do that too. So the program and scale may be different, but we view architecture, interiors, and product design as part of the same aesthetic design continuum. So that's really important how it all ties together, and we'll talk about that in more of our work as I go on to this. And then how about ID? Huh? Anyone like me? Any ID folks? Ah, all right. Okay. So with that, we're doing that too. Again, all these scales, and our aesthetic here, back in the day, combines an interest in culture with the design of physical artifacts, and I like to say and then some, because now we've sort of moved on to the then some when I talk about healthcare. So, and then how about branding? Who knows about branding? Anyone buy any brands in particular? All right, so everything you do, it tends to start leaning towards being a brand. And somehow through all of our experiences, all our buildings, all our interiors, all of our graphic design, our product design, somehow we became this brand. And it's really because of how we viewed them as collections. And it didn't just happen. I mean, we got lucky too. And I'll talk about the luck of that. But one of the things that was interesting is we've been a little bit dormant over the last few years. We had a little falling out with a retailer. But we're looking to build back up. And one of the things we did is we've done some marketing research recently, and we learned about the awareness of our brand. And even we've been a little dormant in being at retail to this degree. There's a 31% awareness of our brand when you show a couple of products. And people, and you're thinking, well, 31%, that's not very good. Because like Cuisinart is 90%. If you do a KitchenAid, right? People know that. But 31% and you don't do any advertising or any marketing, it's pretty good. OXO is 40%, which I was sort of shocked to hear, in terms of marketing and OXO. So I feel that's something we can build off of, and sort of as we start to work our way back up the retail ladder. Yes, this is not from Mary Poppins. This is another big long term, Gazemkin's work, right? And this was employed and driven down our throats at our office. It's a total work of art, is what it means in Austrian. And it really started with the secession movement, or the Wiener Werkstätte movement, with a gentleman that we have a very strong affinity for named Joseph Hoffmann. And he was prior to the Bauhaus. And again, it's what we're practicing in terms of the holistic approach, that being able to design at all scales gives you a unique perspective in the world of how you can come to great solutions. So with Joseph Hoffmann in mind, and I said, and now the Bauhaus, I think the Bauhaus is celebrating its 100th anniversary next year. Right? So that's actually pretty significant. They too were practicing this idea of total work of art, Gazemkin's work. And something Effie had talked about is like I've been witness and being able to work through using total work of art, the Gazemkin works, through 3 pioneering design movements. And I just want to touch upon those. He talked about them. I figure I'll give you a little bit of a visual on that, because typically maybe you experience one movement, but being in our office and being able to go through 3 has been quite unique for me. So again, in 1980s, Michael was really in the office. We were redirecting the architectural conversation away from this idea of abstract modernism towards more of a humanistic approach to architecture and urban planning that, among other things, brought back color and art into the experience of architecture. And again, this was my first project out of design school. And I was so lucky to be in that office at that time, in that place, to be able to work on this project, because it was actually a sort of, I hate to say it, a surrogate architecture, but it still employed all the things that Michael would think about in his buildings. Like if he did the Portland building, there was a sense he would get all these craftspeople together, the tradespeople. He would get the artists, the sculptors, and we're gonna do a project here. And there was sculpture involved in that building. The same thing in this kettle. If you look at it, what's on the end of the whistle? A little sculpture, right? So it's really this idea of this microarchitecture in a way, but it was done through the lens of industrial design, because it's not a small building, it's not a little Tempietto, it clearly is a tea kettle. And that's important, that you really capture the essence of what an object is. You're not trying to recreate a building here, you're trying to find a way to boil water faster. And that's what we did here. We actually had a design brief. That's what we did. And from this product, which was launched in 1985, it became the leading seller for the IDSA family, right? For 20 years, this kettle sold day in, day out, all over the world. And it prompted this ability for us to do all these other projects. These are just some sketches that are Michael's, that are mine. Again, the interesting thing, too, that a lot of people don't know is if you look on the kettle where the little rivets happen, originally we wanted those painted red, but it wasn't achievable through the manufacturing means. And what those little red rivets were, again, a nod to the industrial age, but also they were about reflecting the boiling water that was going on inside. Right? So just really straightforward. There's a lot of metaphor here too with even just what you're seeing in the whistle at the end. One of the things we looked to capture was the gesture and the angle that was equivalent to what you would find on a Rolls-Royce hood ornament. Right? So you were getting to this couture level in this simple object of boiling water, but it was making reference to Rolls-Royces. And then again, early ergonomics, if I go back to the kettle. You know, this idea of human factor. It's just you know where your hand's going to go, you know it's going to be comfortable, and we're using the idea of blue, my favorite color, to say it's cool. It's going to be cool to the touch. So you're using the language of color to create an organization within the composition, meaning the whistle is red, it's going to be hot, right? So don't touch that. So it's just those sort of things, those pragmatic ways of looking at things is something we employed, ran through. And that got us to, really, we did about 150 projects with IDSA over the last 30 years. We have actually a brand new tea infuser that just came out. Most of these products are still on the market. Actually, everything on this page is still on the market. And again, over close to 30 years, every project. So that's pretty interesting because these are utility. These are projects of a utilitarian nature. Boiling water, right? Filling a pitcher. You know, but they tended to be a little bit too beautiful, I would say, to the point that people would display them. They weren't sort of using them. They were being put on display. And we coined a term called countertopability. You know, the idea that you created this landscape on top of your countertop, and it reflected in you some good choices, right? Some good taste. So not only were they beautiful, but they were too expensive. And that was always a problem for us. We didn't want them to be expensive. You know, we wanted these to be our first earliest nods to the democratization of design. We were looking at Revere kettles when we were studying this. Paul Revere, there was a Revereware is what it was called. And we wanted a kettle to come in at $50. And this is now 1984, we're talking 1985. And Alberto IDSA, he humored us. He said, okay, $65 US. And we said, okay, we'll take that. We're a little bit over. And then within a month, once it started selling, he quickly brought it up to $125. So now it's 1986, and you're paying $125 for a stainless steel kettle. That was unheard of. Luckily, we had a group called Yuppies, and they just came to the calling, and they were just buying this kettle like crazy. I can't thank those Yuppies enough. So keep that in mind that we never wanted this to be now. Now it's $225, this kettle, right? Again, there's something economic about it in the fact that it's still made in Italy. There's a small little town in the northern Italian Alps called Crucinalo. They're keeping their people, you know, there intact. They're not having to close factories. So I try to keep that. I try to remember that, you know, that there's these Italian families that have been there for many years, and they're being employed. Again, if it was made in China, $25.99. So speaking of $25.99, that's what this tea kettle cost, right? So we had this moment. In 1997, we were working on this project. We were doing the restoration for the Washington Monument. And in doing so, what do you mean like the restoration? Well, we designed the scaffolding. That's what I mean. And you're like, you designed scaffolding? Yeah. It was going to be up for 3 years. It's got to look good. You know, it's in Washington, D.C. It's a big ticket, big place. It's got to look great. So we designed the scaffolding to, again, help tell the story of what was going on with the restoration, right? Basically, this is solid stone. It's made of block. It's creating a small little running bond. Everyone know what a running bond is? Coursing, right? And what we did with our scaffolding is we amplified. We told the story of what they were doing in recoursing, repointing the stone. And in doing so, how does Target come into this? Target was paying for it, right? They had this philanthropic arm, this philanthropic marketing arm that would do these special interest projects, and they were doing with the National Park Service. So we met Target working on this project. And doing this project, we took a walk with someone who really connected the dots. Basically what happened is we were having a meeting about this building, and the Park Service was taking the Amtrak train, and guess what? The train was late. Not surprising, Amtrak was late. And we decided to take that VP of marketing and say, let's go for a walk. And we brought him over to our office, the products office, and he saw this little tiny store. It's what I call 220 square feet of retail bliss. And what it had at the time was our Alessi products. We were working on rugs, we were working on blankets, we were working on frames, clocks, jewelry, watches. And a light bulb went off in his mind. And he thought, wow, can you do this for us? Can you do this for Target? And we thought, yeah, well, what does that exactly mean? Like take these products and bring it over? And he thought, no. Do it all. I'm just going to flip back and forth here. Do all these projects. So we did 160 products in the first year in 1998, and it launched in 1999. And again, it really was not about selling objects. It was about providing a compelling idea. And we looked around the store, and we needed a form to rally around. And I talk about a form like what you see here. Instead of an idea was born, an idea was hatched. And when you looked at the Alessi products, they're sort of a celebration of the parts. Everything is segmented. The way the body works, and then there's a handle that comes off. Everything has its own place. It's a series of parts. But with Target, we decided, what can we use? And we had come across a survey of architects and interior designers where they voted, there was a consensus that the egg was the most beautiful form in the world. And we figured, well, if it's good for our fellow architects and designers, it's good for us. And it's really comfortable in the hand, just a single egg. And we decided to go crazy with this idea. And we just threw it on everything. And it worked. You know, we thought it was going to be just some sort of marketing hoax where people would come in and, you know, they'd pick up their milk, they'd pick up some toilet paper, but people started buying this stuff because, again, it became a series of branded elements. It became aspirational in a mass market store. And you have to understand what was going on with Target in 1997. There weren't any Targets around here. It was a Midwest company. It existed out of Minneapolis, out of Minnesota. And they were looking to make inroads either to the West Coast and the East Coast. And in doing so, they realized they couldn't compete with Walmart. They couldn't compete with Kmart. Kmart was still in the picture. Walmart beat everybody on price. And Target thought, well, what can we do that's different? Design. So design became the differentiator in the corporate boardroom in America in 1998. So I know I put a lot of emphasis on it, but it just wasn't, if most of you weren't around then, there wasn't a lot that you can afford that really looked good. And this, it was dubbed the idea of mass with class. Really what happened here. So again, we built this incredible brand connection and trust. We did over 2,000 products with Target. We were in 22 categories of the store, right? We did pets, we did baby. We became this idea to the buyers, like, go talk to those Graves people. They'll do something great for you. And we're like, all right, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. It just blossomed. And then that experience, that went on for 15 years. And the interesting thing about it is we had to compete against the Cuisinarts. We had to compete against the KitchenAids because Target wasn't going to tolerate poor sales. They know within 2 days of data, whether a product is going to stay in the store or not. So we had to become business people. We had to really understand marketing. We had to understand planogramming, how things look on the shelf, what was happening in shipping, what was happening after the sale. We sort of took that on in a big way because we wanted to run our business. So we learned a lot, and that was a valuable experience. Then in the 2000s, we had a catastrophic event happen in our office, and that was Michael became disabled. He became paralyzed. Basically sort of ran from the sternum over this way, but he still had the use of his hands. And we became passionate advocates for the disabled and used the power of design to improve healthcare experiences for patients, families, and clinicians. And we experienced this firsthand from Michael's own paralysis, because now, here he was an architect, he was a designer, and now he was going through hospital upon hospital and rehab center upon rehab center, and he became a patient. And he had that experience of how horrible that is, and the indignities of that, and how it doesn't promote well-being. And we thought, how can we turn lemons into lemonade with his help, with him being the advocate and steering the ship. So we decided to talk to some people that we thought we can make inroads with, and that was a company that we look, where can we make our biggest impact? And a lot of times when you're seeing new hospitals go up, it's the new entry hall and the grand entry center. And we're like, that's not where we want to be. We want to be in the patient room. That's where we can have our biggest impact right away. So we decided, well, who owns the bed? And it was a company called Stryker and Hillrom. And we decided to go after those two, and we had a much better connection with Stryker. They also do a lot of hip replacements and knees as well. So, and I don't know if they have a big place up here in Mahwah, New Jersey. And they liked this idea because they were looking for stronger inroads to work in the patient room. So we came up with this first, and I think Karen Nichols, was here last year, and she talked about this. And then she also talked about this, because the other idea was, I'm going to say the word wheelchair. What pops into your mind? That X-frame wheelchair, 1933, Everson Jennings, and it's still in the hospital today. It hasn't changed. So we thought, why is that? And just because people were putting up with it, and no one decided to take it on and be best in class. So we worked with Stryker for 4 years to develop this best-in-class wheelchair. And again, I can spend an hour on this, and I think probably they did last year. So we'll just go right through that. But again, this was the third movement for us, this idea of where we are now. And again, now we're in the hospital, but we're looking to move beyond the hospital, and I'll share about that as well. So let's see what we got. So again, the way I like to term it is I'm doing industrialized sculpture. I'm a sculptor at heart, but I'm doing it in a really mass production way in my experiences over the years. And what I like to think is at a high order. Again, you're thinking, well, you've been at Target, but we didn't skimp in our thought process of design. It was actually harder to design Target products than it is Alessi. Because Alessi, there's a little bit of carte blanche of what you want to do. With Target, it's all about value engineering. You've got to work so closely with those damn engineers. And they're a tough group. So you really have to be on your game to get past that and to hit a price point that can be sold at Target. So, I'm a real sort of perpetual creator here. I always have to be making things, and really, Michael helped bring that out in me. He gave me this opportunity, this atelier, this place to be able to tap into that, and he got the best out of me. And again, I miss him dearly because he was a good friend. He's an amazing person, and then an amazing valuable design resource. So it's just been fruitful in terms of doing product design. But now I want to sort of talk about now as we go into this next generation. One of the things we're thinking about is really we need to memorialize a lot of what had gone on these first 25 years or 30 years, and we have to keep evolving our own voice. We still have to, you have to desire it. You have to still push it every day in those design boundaries. And I'm doing it with these two other people here, Yuka and Rob. And between us, we sort of added up that we have about 67 years of design experience. So we're pretty well equipped to be as creative as possible, and we're pretty confident that we can solve just about anything in design. So and that has been actually rewarded with awards of the work that we've done over the years. So this is my trio. We're taking that vision, that philosophy, and we're moving it forward, and we're going to memorialize it. I want to talk about that a little bit because, again, even though I can give you the recipe, it's really the chemistry, right? It's the chemistry of those people. It's the dialogue you have in the trenches that brings it about. I mean, I can get a person up here to play drums. I can get a person to play guitar. I can get them to play bass. But what music are they going to make together, right? So this is our band, is the way I like to reference it. Because even though you have all the equipment, even though you have the words, it still might not be anything of merit. So how do you push yourselves to really come up with your own unique sound? And the way we're breaking this down is what we call the 4-pillar philosophy. This is our 4 Ps. And it's really about perspective, is the first one. And again, we're designing for people. It requires empathy. So you've got to be empathetic. It's at the core of everything we do. And great design should be physically, physically, emotionally, and financially accessible. And that's all done through our holistic perspective to really understand the context of an idea and the history or place of culture. That provides meaning and connection to move forward in our work. So perspective it's up here. It's at the 30,000 foot level. So you got to carry that perspective to see how it all fits in. And then purpose. Now for me, purpose, I've been toying around with this because purpose is really about function to some degree. And for me, this idea of form follows function, it worked for a while. I think it was coined by Louis Sullivan, and then it was adopted by Mies and Gropius and Corbusier to really exploit the idea. And the idea of form follows function it feels too austere for me. So in establishing these 4 pillars, it wasn't about, it really was celebrating the machine and the industrial age, and we're about celebrating people. And you're never going to say, what's my functionality in life? What's my function in life? It's like, what is my purpose in life, right? So you have to have purpose, not just functionality. It has to have meaning of why you're doing something. So that clear purpose was important for me. It moved beyond just function. So everyone has to find their purpose, not your function. We sweat the details and are advocates for the needs of everybody, our stakeholders who are our clients, and again, people. And we must make sure that whatever we're doing is appropriate. So now we got perspective, we got purpose, and that brings us to personality. So that is sort of the idea of form. So with personality, for us, design is something, it's more about how something works, but for us, in exploring form, we needed it to be, I would say, more about delight. If you look at our products, there's a surprising element. It makes you smile. So we call these delighters. And they have to be engaging. They have to have this unique personality because personalities are what are memorable. So if you can put a personality, I'm not talking about taking to the point of being caricature or kitsch. There's a fine line, again, between the literal and the abstract. You can play really nicely with personality as storing as a memory jar for things. So this is, again, for us, how we create solutions that will endure and become woven into the fabric of the future for us. And then again, the last one, now we have purpose, personality, perspective. You got to have passion, right? You just can't be going through the motions here. And you got to be solving problems that are really going to have some merit, really do some good in this world. And you want to be exceeding expectations. You just don't want to settle for anything. And we think either you have passion or you don't. And you better tap into it. And again, you have to understand what that's going to work for. How does it pertain to your partners? Does it work economically? Does it work socially? Does it work in environmental situations on projects? Those are all really important. And then we break it down one more. So you got to put up with me for a couple more charts here. I won't go in through all these, but from those 4 pillars, with perspective, you get human-centered, contextual, accessible. This is the broader recipe of what we're standing for. And then with purpose, of course, it's going to be useful. It's got to be super easy to use, and it's got to be, know your client, know your audience. It's got to be appropriate. And then in moving again through the idea of personality, you need delighters. What's going to make you smile? That's what, people would come to us like, give us that Graves move, that wow. What's that wow? And we're like, what are you talking about? You want me to just put an egg on it? Am I just going to be putting an egg on this? And or put a bird on it, But it goes a little deeper. They can't quite express it, but you're there to express it for them. as a designer. You have to sort of tap into that. And then, of course, you got to be authentic. You have to be original. Again, you can borrow from the past and then move it into the future, and you can see the reference of where it comes from. And then following up with, I talked about passion. Just be pioneers, be explorers, and be responsible when you are passionate about things. So I'm going to go through quickly here because this is how we design. This is what we sell to our clients. This little sine wave right here. Because we don't start with our clients and say, all right, we're going to go out and do some research, and then we'll get back to you, and then we'll join up, and then we'll do a presentation for you, and then we'll see if you like it, and if you don't like it, maybe then we'll do some more research, or we'll start designing more. With our clients, we want them on the journey with us. So we're just not doing research and then drawing. We're drawing and doing research, and we want our client right here, right in the beginning. We don't want them here to join us. We want them in the very front because we want them witnessing the same thing we are in terms of research. And then what are you going to do with that research? And that's the key, because they have a different interpretation of it than what I would do. But you want them to see the process of how you got there, because we've been in situations before where we've come to the table, we showed our clients all the research, and the client's like, I already know this already. You're not showing me anything I don't already know. But we're like, but just wait, let's show you what we did with the research, right? And that's really key, because we don't always do well with just doing an upfront research project. We'd like to get those first two phases of collect and define, and then explore and design. Those are sort of key, because it's what you do with it. That's the enriching part. That's where you get all the meat on the bones, and that's where you hook them. That's where you get them. And then we just silo this a little bit with these toll gates. You do a kickoff. At some point, you have to define your research into a design brief, right? Everyone do a design brief at those points, right? It's critical. We do them all the time. I mean, when we put them into story, so you see how it's starting to formulate. And this, again, I could spend an hour on this, but I won't. But this is sort of, it's this idea that it all happens in unison. And the other key thing, if you're working with clients and big corporations, and if you're working with engineers, is make sure you have a liaison. And that liaison usually, believe it or not, is marketing. Marketing is your best team member between you and engineering, because at some point with engineering, you're going to do this. We do it all the time. We call it creative dissonance, right? Where they are imposing their ideas, we're imposing our ideas, and you need that marketing person to sort of sum it up, because you all get so invested in it. So you really need that trio of marketing, engineering, and design at the very forefront of when you're starting a project in the real world. So a little bit about new work. How are we doing? Everyone with me? Should I speak a little louder, wake you all up? All right. I just gave you sort of the recipe of our past, how we're sort of moving in to this netherworld with beyond Michael, how we're going to carry that vision forward, how we're going to make sense of it, how we're going to enrich it, how we're going to grow it, and then let's look at some new things. All right, so I'm going to pick a really, really horrible category, right? None of you have any interest in this. It's a category called DME. It stands for durable medical equipment, right? What is that? It sounds horrible already. Like, what is that? Nobody wants this. No one wants to talk about it. No one cares to market to it. No one wants to market to it. No one wants to be involved in it. It's basically, you're in the world of depends, all right, incontinence. All right, so how low can you go? Here we are. But you know what? It's all in your future. If you're talking about the past, the present, the future, we're all going to get there at some point. And some of you might be experiencing this right now with your parents, right? You are what we call the Sandy. Let's just say your name is Sandy. What does Sandy stand for? You're the sandwich person, right? Because maybe in my life I'm having kids over here, and I have my mom over here. I'm sandwiched in between the two. And my mom's not making the best decisions. I got to start making decisions for her. And I don't have a lot of good choices, which you're going to see in this world of durable medical equipment. And one of the things that happens in this world of durable medical equipment is it doesn't even have a great name. And that's why I decided to call this talk Resonating Beauty. You know what the name of it is when you walk down go in the store and look for that area? It's called the Aisle of Death. So yeah, so I'm an expert in the Aisle of Death. That's where I want to be working. That's going to be my legacy. I got to work on a tea kettle. Now I'm working on diapers, adult diapers. But there is salvation in that. You're doing great good. And I actually, as my legacy, I've done a lot of tea kettles. I like where this is going for me. I like being able to solve these problems. So it's not sexy, not even close, but it's necessary. So let's get into it. All right, so we got to do some research here. You got to consider all the stakeholders. And a couple factoids between all these people. This is what you got to know. This is what's going on in the world of durable medical equipment. It is the fear of falling. In a nutshell, everyone wants to stand on two legs. Everyone wants to keep moving. These elders, they don't want to be discouraged. They want to participate in life's activities at all scales within their community. They want to be engaged. They don't want to be depressed. They want to keep moving. And what we're doing enables them to keep moving, right? But it's being done in a way that isn't of a dignified manner. So if you fall as an elder, there's a 30% chance that you will die in the first year. If you fall as an elder, there's a 60% chance that you will never recover to the state that you began. There's I talked about 30% awareness for our brand. Now when I say 30% awareness, 30% that you will die, sounds like a pretty large number now, right? It sort of changes. 30% awareness, 30% you're going to die. So 3 out of 10 people will die when they fall. So we got to stop that. We got to figure out a way to embrace this category of DME. And you have to do an audit. You have to sort of know what's going on in the home. You have to know what's going on in the world around us. I mean, that's what the beginnings of ADA and the requirement of ADA. And what we're looking to do is we're just not designing for elders. It's sort of siloed. We want to design for everybody. So if you can find a way to, as a typical example, curb cuts, right? Crossing the road, originally curb cuts were for the blind, right? You would feel it, and then it would go down so you wouldn't trip over the curb. But it works for everybody. A mother with a newborn can now take her stroller. So why can't it be the same for durable medical equipment? That's what we're looking to do. The same way that wheelchair that I showed you before, the Prime TC, the transport chair, if I put the Prime TC here and a regular wheelchair here, I guarantee you're going to want to sit in this. You won't want to sit in that because that reminds you of how ill you are. But if you sit in this, it will remind you of maybe how active you can be. The fact that you can heal, you can get better. And that's what we're looking to put into these products. So we had to develop our own design filters for this. And again, it really starts with this idea of body, mind, and spirit. And I won't go into the breakdown of it, but that sort of runs you through the gamut when you're putting this against an elder in this case. And I'll give you my first Maslow's hierarchy of needs diagram here. I promise this will be the last one. But it really comes down like understanding what is the need. Need, right? And need is that baseline of ADA, really. Create functional superior solutions. And you might have trouble walking, you might have balance issues, but you might not, and you need a cane, but you might not want a cane, right? So how can you change this idea of need to a want? What we call this idea of usable design, which it says universal here, to the idea of livable design, something that is going to work with your lifestyle, the way you're thinking about it. And then the other concentric diagram you'll have off to the right is really about this idea of aging in place. This is something we're working a lot in through our architecture group, this idea of a forever home, that you design a home for that first home buyer who might be a husband and wife, then they adopt to a family, and at some point that home might not be worked for them when they become 60, 70, 80 years old. Why? Why can't you design all that up front so that it works throughout your entire life so you can stay in your home? So we're working through that idea of a forever home. And this diagram really captures that about aging in the community. It goes beyond just 4 walls. So again, I use this illustration of like the toaster on the left, that's your everyday, and then the toaster on the right, which we designed, right? Which would you rather put your toast in? It's about the need versus want. Sure, you can get toast out of the one on the right, but the other one, it's sort of about an experience of the gesture of browning toast. So we want, when we're designing, we want the ooze. We want ooze. We don't want awe. Aw's pity. We don't want awe. We want ooze. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we're striving for here. The need versus the want. And again, they're sort of separate right now in the marketplace. It's safety and style. And never the two shall meet. But we think they can. We think you can marry both of these in this world of durable medical equipment, DME. And right now you have boomers and boomers and millennials, And boomers sort of they got a taste of the good life. They want good. They want to continue their lives with products that are going to make them feel good, work with their lifestyle. You know, my mother, who's of a certain age, she's from a depression baby. She's sort of the silent generation. She'll take whatever you give her. But if I was to pick something out for her, I would pick something incredible. If I was going to pick a walking stick or a cane for her, which hopefully she'll let me do someday when she needs one. That doesn't sound too good. When she needs one. So, the other thing that happens in this world is there's the reactive. There's been a catastrophic event in your house. Someone has fallen. They've broken their hip. You now have to run to CVS or Rite Aid, go to the aisle of death, buy a raised toilet seat, buy a rollator, buy a walker, a cane, Sid's bath. I mean, all these other things that follow and fall into that aisle, and you're reacting. You got to get it today because mom's moving in, and you got to make sure you got to renovate that house to be able to clear the way for her to be able to move around. Versus, with that forever home idea, why not be proactive? Why not plan that bathroom out from the get-go? Why aren't there a product assortment that can allow you to safely sit on a toilet without it always looking as additive? Why can't we design products that are integrated? And that's what we're doing. So you research, you plan, and you choose. So let's get to it, all right? Let's show a couple things. Now, I got to tell you, I talked to Craig about this. I can only show a couple of items. The reason why is we're under some really tight NDAs right now for at least 15 items. It's a non-disclosure agreement, so we have new relationships going on with certain manufacturers, certain companies, and we're in the negotiation end of it all, and we can't show the work because the IP, the patents, intellectual property have not been put into place. So if I shared it with you, you could take it and do whatever you want with it, and I'm out of a job. Yeah, or I'll have to kill us. Close the doors. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a couple of things we're working on, but I want to say now, if you invite me back next year, I'd be glad to take you through these other 15 products that hopefully will be well on their way. And I will use the word disruptive because some of them, and I got in a lot of trouble today because I tried to sneak 2 of the projects out. And my partner, Rob, there caught me. He goes, Donald, what are you doing? I said, I promise, we'll turn off the camera and I'll show everybody. He goes, no, you can't do it. You just can't. It just puts too much at jeopardy. So hopefully you'll appreciate what I am going to show you. But if you invite me back next year, I'll be happy to talk further about it because they're really fun. It changes the conversation about these lowly, horrible products in the aisle of death. So we're all familiar with today's canes. You find them in the deepest, darkest corners of the aisle of death. Also in those surgical supply stores. They look clinical, they look medical, they look like nasty devices. It's all about resist, resist, resist. I don't want to touch that. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to go near that. Why? Because it's basically changing the sort of physiological behavior of myself, saying that I am becoming jeopardized in my life. I am becoming weakened. And I'm going to fight that as often and as much as I can. Versus, is there a way to ease into it? Is there a way to make it easier in your life that you embrace it? We used to show a picture of Brad Pitt. I would show a picture of Brad Pitt right now, and he was walking around with this incredible walking stick, this incredible Steinway piano cane with this beautiful lacquer finish. And people, when there's certain styling and wearing certain fashion, the men will carry a cane, just to work with their outfit. So this is what right now the stigma is right now. I look old and I look like I'm waiting to die. So, and then this is what designer means. Take an object and put some color on it, put some pattern on it, nailed it, done, move on to the next. So this is what people are conditioned to think of what is design, right? And but let me see if I can help and show you some more of things a little bit more redefined. So first, we're going to change the terminology. I've probably been going back and forth saying the word cane, saying the word walking stick. I can't help it. We try not to use the word cane. We try to change the conversation and say walking stick. It just shows a more active response. I'm walking, and I'm carrying a stick. So the first change is you have to change the stigma of what the word means, right? And you got to have that dialogue in order to start really addressing aging. And we just didn't do 1 walking stick. We did 3. And the interesting thing about them is just like shoes. It's not a one size fits all. What we learned in our research is come in all different shapes and sizes. We worked with physical therapists and people who were just experts in walking and understanding the gait. When you walk with a gait, that's your stride. And not one cane meets all these conditions. So you need this idea of 3 types of handles: a light, moderate, a light, a moderate, medium, and a heavy, to sort of deal with your balance issues of where you are in your life. And then we also designed 2 different feet, one that allows the cane to stand in place. And then the other idea is everything is separated. So you can start to customize things. You can start to develop a cane that works with your fashion sense, your lifestyle. And then you also notice, and I'll go through this a little bit more, that you're not seeing those Swiss cheese ways of adjusting the cane up and down. They're all embedded inside. So it just removes that idea of being to that level of clinical and sort of changes the way even how you adjust the cane. So again, you can mix it up here, mix and match for days. I did bring one here, and if you're more than welcome. It's just a prototype, an off-tool sample, and you're more than welcome to check it out. Yeah. Should I start with you? Yeah, that's just a prototype, but it's pretty robust. That one was made in Vermont, in the beautiful state of Vermont. Eventually, when we want to get the price, I know that sounds horrible, it's going to be made in China to get the price what we want. So the idea is, which one do you want, right? And then we also did something very interesting. We're developing a wood pole here, and it's an adjustable. So the holes are interior. There's no adjustable wood walking stick on the market currently. We also have done, I'd love to show you this, a folding walking stick that would just, I'll save it for next year. It's so good. It just changes the game. It's just, yeah. So the way I view it is, like, I need glasses to see properly, right? So, but I get to pick out my choice of glassware to hopefully enhance my look when I'm wearing blue, to look my best. And we want the same thing when you're addressing a walking stick. Why not make that an accessory? Why isn't that sold other places like J.Crew, for instance? And I'll mention that because we have a friend we're working with who's been an advocate of getting walking sticks in J.Crew. So I want to sort of take you through, again, so I talked about the lifestyle need of this, how it sort of can work and establish itself in your life, elegant style, sense of confidence you put into these items. You need all that. It really changes the conversation. It's not what you need, it's what you want. And now I want to show you how we convey this to our clients. So this is the way we did it when we had our clients sit in the room. We did what we call this day in the life. So I just went over a bunch of features, right? But they're not quite relatable. But how does this walking stick spend its day? And we do it sort of like this. We do it through this idea of storytelling. So you can sort of see what she's doing throughout the day. She's starting her day. It's self-standing. If she needs an extra hand, she cups around her arm. She's walking down the stairs. This becomes a more effective way for our clients to really understand the features and benefits. And again, when you put it in the hands, you're showing it with people, right? You're just not showing this sterile object on a page. We give it some scale by putting it with a person. So you can see usually those walking sticks would just, how do you capture that? If you go into restaurants, you see them all. If someone is using a walking stick, it's now on the floor, and now you're tripping over it. They have to bend all the way over to pick it up. Is there a way to get it hang on the edge, right? And then look what her pocketbook's doing. Her pocketbook is just also being held there as well instead of on the floor, so it's close to her. Just all these little things that you can't quite talk about in the features, but then you can illustrate here, and you get the idea of it. And then we had two different feet that we can put on. And what's really wonderful is the one in the middle. So if she or he drops it, they're able to retrieve it by using their own foot. So whoever has it, you can try that out. There's a little practice to it, but it works pretty smooth in that way. And then even the stand assist. A lot of times with a typical cane, you're cupping over your hand, so you're sort of pivoting on a point versus giving yourself 2 points, right? So that's going to help you be able to get up. So those are the sort of things that you start to really build into the product that maybe aren't the first round of features. And then even just changing the foot. right now, with typical walking sticks, or we'll call those canes, you need a screwdriver and a couple wrestlers to be able to take off that foot, that end. But here it just disengages with just a little snap. And then it has non-slip, so hang against the wall, hang along the table. And this really starts to show the sort of ecosystem of how this product can start to live in the world, and why a client would want to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in tooling to make it. You know, what is the benefit here? You can start to see the benefit this way. How am I doing on time? I'm late, huh? Are we okay? Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll go through these real quick. Again, we did a bathing wand too, which articulates. It's like a little spine. Again, if you're having certain motor skill problems, you can't get your arms above your head, this allows you, and it just easily adjusts and holds its position. If you can't hold this, you can grip through. This also crushes, so you can get a better grip. And then these heads all change depending on what you use when you bathe. So we'll pass that around as well. And then just another one. Actually, David, I have a lot, but I'll go through it pretty quickly. Yeah, and then this is another one. Like, look what's going on here. This is that whole reactive mode that I told you about before. Someone has fallen. We got to get some grab bars up in the bathroom, right? And this is what it looks like. It's just now I've spent all this time putting tile up, what I think is a good-looking bathroom, and now I'm going to populate it with these nasty institutional-looking bars, right? Why does it have to be that way? Right? Why can't I plan appropriately and have something look like this? Right? This is a trellis system of safety. Again, yeah. So in a shower, this also works in a bathtub. This is a sneak peek. We're in the throes of this, but I figured this one's a little safer to show you. We're talking with a plumbing company right now about this. And again, it gives you more surfaces to grab onto if you are falling versus one and done, right? So you have other choices. You can hang a chair on it. You can move that chair. That chair can fold up, and now there's a place for your feet to wash your feet properly, you know, to shave shave. And again, this isn't just good for elders. This is good for everybody, you know. And there's knobs and handles there to hold that bathing wand, to hold a washcloth. And it's tasteful in a way that it doesn't feel additive. It feels planned. It feels integrated. I thought it through. And then the other thing you're going to notice, here we just throw in the child here, is why is it dark, right? Why is it black? Well, that's a choice. It could be nickel. It could be brushed nickel. But here, one thing we did a project in Yale, New Haven for Center for Restorative Care, an elder wing of a hospital. And we noticed that aging eyes start to yellow, right? They see a yellow glaze, a yellow haze, and they can't pick up contrast. So it's really important to give them high contrast. So you'll notice we have a gray floor, we have two opposing white tile walls, and then a focal point wall, which is blue. So every surface is delineated and can be made out with a low vision impairment eye to be able to see this. And then you just want to make sure you have enough contrast so it can be picked up and be seen. That's what that lesson is there. And this is our goal ultimately. Change that idea. I mean, this could say Amazon on it. I'll be happy with that. Right? Doesn't matter. It can say Amazon, you know. But we're going to get to these products. We're going to do them all at the best in class. Again, we have another 13, 15 that we're right now doing through a non-disclosure agreement. We have this bath mat. And what's so interesting is the answer was just staring us in the face, and it became a whole new way to address the lowly bath mat, because the problem with bath mats is you can't lift them up. They get moldy, they're yucky, and someone leaning over, you can actually pull your back out trying to deal with all the suction cups, and we solved for that. But wait, there's more. Okay, so this is what we're doing right now. Besides those type of products, there's always work coming in. We joined forces with a Italian cookware company called TVS. They do really high-end non-stick cookware. And what we were trying to do here is we had developed some tools. And this was, you see these tools right here, kitchen tools? This was really in response to our target tools, which back in the day were those big giant eggs, right? And they were for the McMansions of the world. Now there's more of an urban vibe going on where the same amount of real estate that took for that one tool, now we can have 5 tools. But in doing so, we really like this form. We had the egg for target. Here we have the celery stalk. because the celery stalk's pretty space savings, the way it sort of cradles and nests together like that, right? So we thought there's something there. Why don't we do tools based on celery? You know, I'm simplifying it for you, believe me. But that was the sort of idea. This is what we came up with cookware. You know, so in doing this cookware, you'll see right away that we developed these really nice glass lids. This is launching in next March at Frankfurt in Ambiente in Germany. And we made a place to put your utensils. So with that little cradling effect, now you don't need that spoon rest. It's built right in. And also taking place like this big, look how great that glass lid is. It's just really ample. Even with an oven mitt, right, what you have to do you can pick it up, and you can see what's going on inside. And then another little detail that I just want to explain is you see how you have the little hanging hole punch right here? Can you see my? No. Oh, you can't see it? Oh, all right. But there's a rivet right here, and we like to say that it was punched from here and then utilized over here. So everything's been reused. So this is some cookware that's coming out, new collection. It also will be with these kitchen tools as well. So a little more space saving, a little more urban vibe to it. We do a lot of watches. We do a watch probably every 2 years. And the idea behind, the inspiration behind this watch was, of course, Joseph Hoffman. You can see his little loving cup down in the right-hand corner, which I think is part of your collection now. That didn't stay? That's in the house. Yeah. So this is something that Michael Graves has, but we've always been influenced by these flutes, these scallops. You know, there's something that recalls nature, the theme of nature, but then there's also the idea of the order, you know, column. It's stoic. It actually has a sense of structure to it. So we started sketching the watch, trying to capture that Nautilus aspect to it. What we've done before, this is a candy dish we designed. This is a cookie jar. And we wanted to get this three-dimensionality on the face, but we couldn't do it. And we couldn't afford it for the type of price that needed to come out, so the watch went away. It was dormant for 2 years till we were able to think of another way to capture the watch. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the specialty ink business. He prints money. And he talked to me about this French engraving technique called gouache. And it does show up in watches. It's just milled engraving. And I thought maybe we can use this, which you do see on antique watches, in a more broader, modernist way. And we came up with this. So this watch is actually on the cover of the Museum of Modern Art, October fall issue. So we're really happy about that. So that's just, it's been on the market for probably about 8 months, but we're so happy that it made the cover of MoMA. So that's out now. We have a new bench that's coming out in March. And again, this was something we started as a sort of homage to Michael. And like, what can we do to it, right? So we start with this formal element of structure, the keystone. And we thought, well, you know, we understand, you know, again, we're looking to the past in order to inform us of the future. And we decided, let's just make it be continuous. So we created this Mobius band to sort of play off it. So the keystone is there in structure and integrity, but then we just did this other idea to it. And it's now a full line of furniture. It's tables, it's going to be chairs, it's going to be sort of picnic table, picnic chair. So it's becoming a whole line for a company called David Edward, who's out of Baltimore. And then the same thing again with our aqueduct chair. You know, we were looking to the past, this idea of arch as structure. You know, has a real deep resonance of what the arch represents in architecture. It lifts up the eye and spirit to a higher plane. And we thought one of the things that's really important with chairs is they're usually read from behind. You really approach them from behind. So let's design this chair from the back. And from the back, you really get a great cadence when you have the stacking chair